Hello there. Good to see you come back to visit me this afternoon. I'm going to make some salsa today. I've made some salsa and I've jarred it up. I've water bath canned it. So I'll show you how we go about doing that today. I've got a little bit over 3 kilos of washed and cored and chopped tomatoes. Okay. I'm coming to the end of all the tomatoes we've got in the garden. We're on the home stretch. So perfect when they're nice and ripe to make beautiful salsa. So into a big pot. Look at that. Oh, beautiful. Now, I will also chop up some onion. Now for that amount of salsa, I'm going to use 3. They're not, yeah, I guess they're reasonably small onions. So just bear with me while I peel and chop these. I've also got some capsicum. Now, do a rough chop on them. Doesn't have to be fine by any stretch of the imagination. And get them in the pot. Because the original recipe calls for red capsicum, but I actually really like the green capsicums or peppers. Gives it a bit more colour. I've got these beautiful bullhorn. Gosh, I can't speak today. Bullhorn capsicum as well. Might need to whip out and grab one more, and I've got a few of these little ones now. I don't know where they came from, but they're really sweet and lovely. So I've picked a few of the red ones. I'll throw them in as well. Right, now let me have a look here. Can you see? Beautiful, looks lovely and colourful. Now, we'll chop up the capsicum. And again, it does not matter which way you chop it. There's a little bad little bit there. And take out the pith. So get rid of the seeds. And most of the pith, if you can do that. I'll come back once I've chopped all of this up, and then we'll pop it on the stove top to cook. Now I've got some chilies and 6 cloves of garlic I'm going to add to the salsa mix. So just preparing these. Now when I chop the chilies up, I'm going to deseed them. But if you prefer a chili that blows your head off, by all means leave the seeds in. So I chopped my 6 cloves of garlic up and my chilies just in strips. I've deseeded them and got them ready there. Now you can mince your chilies if you like, but I actually like tasting little chunks of, so up to you entirely, but they're ready to go into the pot. Look at that, all the chopping's done. I've got the different types of capsicum or peppers. I've got the onions, I've got the tomatoes. Now, what I'm going to add to this now is, of course, a lot of, a good grinding of black pepper. That's a given. This amount, I'll start off with a big spoonful of salt. And now I'm going to take it over and pop it on the heat. Now, once it starts to come up to a simmer, I'll add the other ingredients. So I'll bring you back then. Okay, so I'll see you soon. So now is the time to add the last of the ingredients. Now I've got here some white granulated sugar. It's about a large spoonful, so a dessert spoonful perhaps. I've got half a cup of apple cider vinegar, and I've got about 35 grams of fresh coriander. Now I do realise that a lot of people don't like it. Of course, omit this if you don't like it. And as with everything, just taste it. If you need to add some more salt or some more sugar or what have you, please do that. Now we need to let this cook for about 15-20 minutes, just to let that reduce down a little bit more. I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit, and we want to thicken up the mix a little bit. As you can see, I'm ladling some warm salsa into my prepared glass jars. Now a little bit about water bath canning. First of all, your jars need to be without any chips or cracks and in good order. And there's debate about this, but I always use new lids, which can be sourced from the internet. You don't need to boil the glass jars anymore. What I do is I run them through the dishwasher prior to doing any water bath canning. And in regards to food safety, that now is acceptable. When you are ladling into your jars, the jars need to be at the same temperature, more or less, of what you've just finished cooking. The second thing is you do need to leave adequate headspace. Now, when ladling the salsa into the jars, you can see where the neck ends on the jar, the ridges where the screw top lid does up. Now you need to just bring up the product just where that meets. You then need to use a product. As you can see here, I'm using a plastic knife just for that reason, to debubble. Just need to make sure all the air pockets are out. Now you see me adding a teaspoon of bottled lemon juice. Now, because tomatoes are a low acid food, they need that addition of bottled lemon juice, and it must be bottled lemon juice. Even though that has got vinegar in it, I always like to err on the side of caution and follow that process. Then it's time to wipe your rims down with white vinegar. Now this prevents a dodgy seal. Basically, you've got to make sure that everything is clean, so it can, when it comes in contact with the lid, it does seal correctly, so therefore your food is not spoiling in the long term. Transfer your jars to your big pot or what have you. I use a pressure canner without the pressure canning, obviously. Now the water, you need to add hot water as long as the jars are hot. If it's cold, add just tepid room water. Now it needs to be at a level of about 3.5 centimeters or an inch above, and you need to make sure that the jars are not sitting directly on the bottom of that saucepan. You need to have them on a little tray or an inverted plate, maybe with an old tea towel over the top of the plate. As long as it's not directly sitting on the bottom of the pot, that's fine. Now, once you bring that water up to a rolling boil, lid on top of the saucepan, set your timer. These jars were processed for 20 minutes. Once my timer went off, I turned the heat off. I took the lid off. Then set another timer for about 10 minutes, because you need to let them sit in that water for about 10 minutes. Then you need to use a jar lifter. You need to very carefully place it on top of a wooden chopping board or your nylon chopping boards. Cover it with a clean, dry tea towel, again to avoid thermal shock. Leave a little bit of space in between, say about an inch or 3.5 centimeters in between each jar or bottle, and you must leave them there for 24 hours. Put them out of the way of little fingers or little hands as well as big hands. You don't want to knock it over or knock them, and just leave them there. Then once that time has lapsed, you can label them, date them, and you've got them for about a year.